Good afternoon, Honorable Karen. That is joined so far is Honorable Okahlamba. This maybe I missed him, still accepted him. So in terms of the numbers, the committee for honorable members, welcome to this meeting. I am going to chair the first session of the meeting. As you saw on the agenda that we have got two sessions. We have an apology from the chairperson. The chairperson has got a bereavement at home, so she's on a family responsibility leave for the duration of this week. So it is due to that today's meeting has got these two sessions. The first session is going to focus on the election of the acting chair, and then the second session is going to focus on the business of the. Am I audible, honorable members? I don't want to continue talking and only to realize that I have left all of you behind.
You are audible.
You're audible.
Thank you, Honorable Ryder. Honorable members, the election of the acting chairperson must be done in accordance with NCOP Rule 92, Sub Rule 1, which states that if the chairperson of the committee or subcommittee is absent or unable to perform the functions of the chairperson, the committee or subcommittee may elect another member, another of its members as an acting chairperson unless these rules provide otherwise in a specific case. Sub-rule 2 adds that an acting chairperson performs the functions and may exercise the powers of the chairperson. So the procedure that we are going to follow in electing the chairperson is as follows. I, as the secretary of the committee, I will preside over this session. So I will invite members to nominate a member who will act as an acting chair for today. A member mentioning his or her name will move the name of the preferred member. Another member will mentioning his or her name will second the nominated member. Members may nominate two names. If members decide to do so, the two names will be put on a vote and the members the member who with the most votes will then take the chair and proceed with the business of the committee. If only one member is nominated and seconded, and members do not nominate a second name, the nominated member will then take the chair and proceed with the business of the committee. I now, honorable members, invite you to nominate the name of the acting chairperson for today.
Yeah, can I do the nomination, Shagas?
You are welcome, Inkosi Mkiva.
Yeah, I would like to take this opportunity to nominate the Honorable Mr. Njadu.
Thank you.
Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable Karim.
As much as I'm bitterly disappointed that Inkosi and Kiva didn't nominate me, I cannot for the life of me understand why. And I'll settle scores with him next week, Tuesday, when I'm chairing the Finance Committee. And I won't notice when his hand goes up, needless to say. But be that as it may, I have great pleasure in seconding Mr. Njadu. But may I put something to you, Chairperson? I'm sure there's no rule on this. So unless Mr. Dennis Ryder or somebody raises a constitutional problem, although I think you're the one most likely to do so, Chairperson, I would like to suggest, in view of what happened this morning and some exchanges telephonically, you might know or not know, Chairperson, that Mr. Njadu was unable, about 2 minutes into his 10-minute input on the fiscal framework report this morning, he was cut out. So he couldn't finish. Frankly, I thought the chair of the NCOP, it's something I'll raise with the chief, should possibly have said, can one other member of the committee use up the 8 minutes and deliver the report? Because it's not his fault. So he's a bit concerned, I gather, and it makes sense that he might get cut off again. In fact, it took him a good half an hour more to rejoin the NCOP meeting. So what I'm suggesting is, unless there's a specific rule against it, who would have thought COVID would come? I can't imagine there's any rule. I second his name, but I also suggest, instead of going through the whole rigmarole again, if it's acceptable to everybody and yourself as representing the committee section, that if he gets cut off beyond his control, that we have a deputy chairperson. And although Zolani couldn't even think of nominating me, I do him the gracious reply by saying that if Mr. Njadu is cut off, I would like to suggest that the Honorable Nkiva be the acting chair until Mr. Njadu joins us. Otherwise, Mr. Nkiva can continue to chair till the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. If I may comment earlier on, I was speaking to Mr. Njadu about what happened this morning. So I am sorry about that experience. With respect to what you have suggested now, I don't think there is no problem, Chairperson. This is the meeting of this committee. This committee can decide how this meeting should be handled post this session. So what you are suggesting is perfect, because we are dealing with technology. It's better to have plan B. And it's better that they put it front and that the committee agree to it. Take a resolution.
Thank you, Chair. Just one final qualification. This doesn't mean that Inkosi and Kiva, being a traditional leader and having subjects and, or as you would say, people whom he leads, who work in telecom, or the service provider that delivers the Wi-Fi to Mr. Njadu's home, will cut him off after 3 minutes, and then Mr. Kiva will chair, as long as that qualification is accepted.
No, thanks, Chair. Chairperson, may I recognize you, Honorable Ryder?
Thank you very, very much. I just wanted to say that I have no objection to Mr. Njadu's nomination. I think the general consensus is anyone except Karim is acceptable. So, yeah, and I think Mr. Nkiva, yes, absolutely. If needs be, if he can step in, we'd be quite happy with that. Thank you.
I'll get you next week, Dennis, on Tuesday.
Thank you, members. Members, I take it that there is no member who wishes to nominate a second name. If then that is the case, may you please allow me to proceed to the next stage and ask Honorable Njadu if he accepts the nomination.
Thank you very much, Babalo, and good afternoon to all the members. Now nomination accepted, and with the co-chair, Honorable Kiva. Yeah, I think for anything that may happen. Thank you very much, members. Good afternoon once more. Can we just quickly go to the roll call?
Just before you proceed, Honorable Njatu, let me officially hand over the meeting to you. From my side, you may take over your meeting, Honorable Njatu, and chair it. I just want to indicate that, okay, this part will be addressed under the roll call. Thanks. Let me not mention it for now. Thank you. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. All members are welcomed, and the meeting is formally opened. Let me first use this opportunity to pass the condolences on behalf of the committee formal to the chairperson of the committee, Honorable Mahlangu, on the passing of her mother. And we wish everything to be well organized in terms of the funeral. And I did spoke to her this morning and as on the committee to pass our condolences. Then going to the meeting agenda is that we will then go to the roll call on the members present in the meeting. Or any apologies?
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, as I indicated earlier on, we have the apology from Chairperson Mahlangu. So that's the only apology from the committee. Also, Chair, we have invited the provinces, provincial chairpersons and their committees to join this meeting. There are 2 provinces which have submitted apologies, Eastern Cape and Northern Cape. I understand that Gauteng may be in and out because this meeting is clashing with other meetings that are happening in the provincial legislature, Chairperson. So, except that, Chair, I don't have any apologies from provinces, Chair. Thanks. I take that chairpersons who are present from provinces will speak for themselves. They are in the meeting. Over to you, Chair. Hello, Chair. Looks like we have a challenge. Hello, members.
I think it's Mr. Mkiva that must be up now. See?
Yes.
We're in a meeting.
Chairperson.
Yeah, that being the case, then if Mr. Njatu has disconnected, let's take the first presentation from National Treasury.
Acting Chair, can I comment on the latter matter? Gauteng is in the meeting. We're done with our earlier meeting as suggested in the apologies, Chair. This is Chairperson Mpisi.
Oh, thank you, Comrade Pisi. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Can we then allow the National Treasury to make the first presentation as itemized on the agenda? Over to you, National Treasury. Just do your introduction, the person who's going to be leading us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chairpersons and honorable members. Good afternoon. My name is Mampo Modise, and I'm leading the delegation that will be looking at the division of revenue. We have 4 speakers today. Chairperson, hopefully will give us time to go through the presentation. Wendy will start, Litipa will follow, Bongani as well as Zetu. Without wasting time, may I please ask with your permission, Chairperson, Wendy to come in and start with the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, can go ahead, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This gives you an outline of the presentation. So we've got various aspects that we're going to deal with respect to various presenters as well. Next slide, please. Okay, what is very important is we need to see the 2021 MTF division of revenue into context. There are large reductions made to both the national and provincial allocations due to the wage freeze that's been introduced in 2019-20, and it's been 2020-21, and it's going to be continued into the MTF as well. What is important here is that it's largely the reduction in the salaries because of the wage freeze, and we need to keep that in mind as well when we look at the allocations. For example, if you look at the equitable share for provinces, you could see that the amount reduces by 205.9 billion over the MTF, but the allocations still grow at a marginal rate, 0.8%, despite this reduction that's been made. Back to the next slide, please. And the majority of the reduction has got to do with the wage freeze, and 85% of the PES reductions can be attributed to that. And in the next slide, I'll go in a bit more detail on what we propose be done by provinces, but also municipalities to deal with the reductions in the budgets that's been allocated. There's also reduction in the local government equitable share. And if you again look at the column, you could see that the equitable share for local government still grows at a 4.4%. So it is still a substantial growth rate, for example, if you compare it against the other spheres of government, and the conditional grants also grow at 7.3% for local government and for provinces at 4.6%. And the reason why these conditional grants grow faster than the equitable share is an acknowledgement that infrastructure and infrastructure development supports economic growth and development. So as far as possible, the infrastructure grants have been protected. The reductions largely focused on cases where they were underspending. And then what was also done to protect very critical programs that cannot be scaled down without having adverse impact on service delivery, such as the school nutrition programs. Those reductions were then placed on other areas so that those programs could be protected. And of course, given that we're still facing COVID-19 as well, the MTF also takes into account the need for COVID-related expenditure, and also allowing some of the provisions that were introduced in 2020, such as amending the conditional grant frameworks to allow for spending on COVID-related expenditure, is continued in the 21 MTF. Next slide. What this slide indicates is that the equitable shares and also the conditional grants that go to provinces and municipalities have got a very strong redistributive effect. That means that a rural province will get a larger per capita allocation than an urban province, and metropolitan municipality will get a smaller per household allocation than the rural municipality. If you look at the left-hand side, it indicates, for example, if you compare the Eastern Cape allocation, you could see that the equitable share is 10.1 per capita, and the conditional grant is 2. But if you compare, if you look then at Gauteng, you could see it's a smaller amount, 7.2%, and then 1.6. And the same with regard to the allocations that's going to metropolitan municipalities versus the more rural municipalities. So you can see on the right-hand graph that rural municipalities get about 3 times more than what a metropolitan household will get. And that acknowledges the fact that metropolitan municipalities have got a much larger capability to collect own revenues, because there's a strong correlation between the ability to collect own revenues and economic activity. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, what this slide indicates, and it was also presented as part of the fiscal framework, and of course it resulted also in a lot of discussion on the fiscal framework, and it's got implications for the division of revenue as well, particularly if you look at the allocations or the reductions made to the provincial equitable share. If you look at the left-hand graph, you could see the red bar shows the compensation, and the graph next to it, the grey one, shows the nominal GDP. And if you look at the first 2 bars, it indicates that the red bar is smaller than the grey bar. But if you then look from 2004 onwards, you could see that the compensation is much larger than the nominal GDP. And what is needed is for that to bring it under control. The same is shown in the right-hand bar. It shows that the average public service remuneration has grown much faster than the per capita GDP. And it is something that we need to reverse, because if we don't, then in the end, it means that everything will be spent on salaries and no more money will be made available for social grants or for service delivery, which could be very detrimental to the fiscal framework and also service delivery. And what the graph, the table below also indicates is that government employees on average are paid much more than the private sector. And that is also a trend that needs to be reversed. Next slide. Then what is also important is that focusing that we now need to do more with less. There are great opportunities to be explored. In addition to curtailing the wage bill, we can also look at how can we have better and more efficient spending in provinces and municipalities. And a number of expenditure reviews or spending reviews have already been undertaken. And if those results of those spending reviews are taken into account, it means that we can actually have large cost savings going forward, and it means you can do more with less. For example, if you look at the HIV/AIDS grant, the conditional grants, a comparison was done across provinces on how much they spend on unit cost in terms of ART treatment, and it ranged from 2.668 in Mpumalanga to 5.038 in Northern Cape. So you could see the cost ranges are very varying, and it's not necessary to say that the cost must be the same, but the benchmark gives you a very good idea of where potential savings can be secured, because there could also be unique costs that will result in higher expenditure in some provinces than others. But the range is huge, and it will be very difficult to account that this is just because of locational differences. Then managing overtime is also another area that's been identified, and you need to get the right balance between overtime payment and also adding additional staff and the cost implications for that, because overtime payments are generally more or could be more than if what you just appoint additional staff. So that's another area that provinces can focus on. Again, another area where there's potential for cost savings are goods and services, and procurement reforms there could also be very important. And then also goods and services, another area that you can actually have some savings as well. Next slide. Then a critical area as well is to build operational and technical capacities in provinces and municipalities. And the Government Technical Advisory Centre, or GTAC as we often refer to it, has done quite a bit to assist provincial officials as well to start undertaking the spending reviews and trained them on how to undertake these spending reviews. So what has been done on national level can then also be replicated on the provincial level. This will result also again in ensuring efficiencies and effectiveness in service delivery. Also important, the infrastructure delivery management system again is put in place to enable better and better quality spending on infrastructure. Next slide. Another area that should be focused on, where substantial efficiencies and effectiveness need to be focused on, and that is COE management. And what is quite key here is to manage the numbers downwards in such a way that it does not impact on service delivery. So in addition to using tools such as natural attrition, that is where people leave the system by themselves, getting jobs elsewhere, for example. Other tools could also be explored, such as early retirement, where such positions can then be filled with younger staff, for example, that will cost less. But also where there's vacancies identified, that those positions that priority be focused on to be filled, and that the functions or personnel that's not really linked to service delivery, that those posts, for example, be abolished going forward. But what will also be very critical in the process is that what we've also noticed that the ratios in terms of how much a province spent on personnel vary quite substantially across provinces as well, where, for example, in certain cases, it will be 80% of the budget will be spent on personnel, and other provinces, it will, for example, be 70%. And again, provinces need to put expenditure ceilings in place as part of their budget process so that sufficient money is still available for service delivery, because in order to provide services, you need to have the tools available also to provide those services. Next slide. And then again, an area that requires quite substantial reform is on the area of procurement. We've got old historical ways of doing procurement, and what is quite important is to modernize the systems that's currently in place. And National Treasury is working together with the provincial treasuries to assist them by using IT and other technologies to improve procurement processes. Next slide. And then what is quite key is that there are key factors affecting sustainability, and there are ones that's specifically at national and provincial level, and that is resulting, if these are not implemented, that results in impacting on service delivery and also the sustainability of provinces and municipalities. And if we deal with the issues that's listed on this list, such, for example, unfunded budgets, poor budget implementation, and these get addressed, you will see improved financial sustainability, for example, in municipalities as well. And on the provincial side, use of, for example, readily available information, putting in place early warning systems would also help to improve oversight over local government and then result in improved support to municipalities. Next slide. And what is quite important is there's not just one response that will change the viability or sustainability, both at the provincial sphere and also the municipal sphere, but a multi-pronged response are needed from multiple stakeholders. And the first and foremost is to have an enabling political environment that supports these reforms. And what is also then required is strengthened collaboration between the various stakeholders, improve capacity, support and intervention, stronger financial management responses when something goes wrong, and improved regulatory response when something goes wrong, and also improved policy response. And these must all be done concurrently, because just focusing on one of these interventions won't have the necessary reforms that we're looking forward to. Next slide. I will now hand over to Bongani Dalka that will take you through the provincial allocations and how it changes over the 2021 MTF. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, honorable members and colleagues. I will be presenting on the provincial slides. In terms of the provincial allocations, the conditional grants are growing at a faster annual rate than the equitable share. And conditional grants are growing at 4.6%, while the provincial equitable share is growing at 0.8%. And this is as a result of, to some extent, the COE reduction that Wendy has already talked to. Also, it should be noted that for the provincial allocations, about 82% of the allocations go through the provincial equitable share. And in terms of the allocations for the 2020, 21, 22 financial year, about 524 billion is allocated through the equitable share, and the total allocations to provinces are about 639 billion. Next slide, please. In terms of the provincial equitable share, the provincial equitable share consists of 6 components that account for the relative demand of service, and it also takes into consideration the changes to the demographics in the provinces. And in terms of the formula, it gets updated annually, and some of the updates that were done for the current cycle to update the equitable share with the 2020 mid-year population estimates, where it updates for the population and the age cohort, and also this data we get from StatSA, and also we update with the laureates data for the education component. This data we get from the Department of Basic Education. And the committee should also note that we updated the provincial equitable share with the 2018 General Household Survey data for medical coverage. And this is because the 2019 General Household Survey was not available at the time of determining this equitable share. And also to update the committee in terms of the progress in terms of the review of the provincial equitable share. The committee should note that in terms of the education component, the we have faced in the school age going, like number of students who are of age school going. Initially, what happened was that we were using the 2021 census data, but from this year, we are fully using the mid-year population estimates, and the phase-in was done for over the past 3 years. And also the committee should know that we previously have moved away from using the SNAP survey to using the laureates. That allows us to track the students even when they change schools. And also in terms of for continuous reviewing of the provincial equitable share, in terms of the health component, we recently acquired data that is going to assist us in terms of reviewing of the risk adjustment capacitation index. Next slide, please. In terms of this slide, what we are showing to the committee are the changes that have happened since the tabling of the 2020 medium-term budget policy statement. In order to respond to the COVID-19, 8 billion has been added to the provincial equitable share in the first year of the MTEF, 2021 MTEF. And this is to allow for provinces to respond to COVID-19 and any subsequent waves that may occur. By adding this money through the equitable share, we are giving the provinces the flexibility to respond without putting any restrictions in terms of, because we don't know even the shape that the subsequent waves may take, so we don't want to limit their ability to respond. Moreover, we have added about 2.4 billion to the COVID-19 component that was created during the special adjustment budget last year, whereby the 2.4 billion is made up of about 1.5 billion in the first year of the MTEF and 900 million in the second year of the MTEF. And this money is added to the HIV, TB, malaria, and community outreach program. And this money is to assist provinces to roll out the COVID-19 vaccine. So in terms of the other changes that have happened, there is 140 million that has been shifted to the human resource and training grant. This is to augment the funds that are going to be used for the hiring of the medical interns as a shortage was identified in that grant. And also in terms of during the MTVPS, the reductions that were done to COE for provinces were mainly done on the provincial equitable share. However, it has since been decided that for conditional grants that also carry the COE component, that the share of the COE reductions should be shifted to those conditional grants. As a result of that, about 1.7 billion in the first year of the MTEF and about 2.1 billion in the second year of the MTEF, those reductions to COE have been shifted to the conditional grants. Next slide, please. Next, okay. In terms of this slide, we are communicating to the committee that before we came to the committee to indicate that we have created a component within the Human Settlements Development Grant, and that we wanted to see how that component performs, and given the lessons from that component, establish a standalone grant. From the 2021-22 financial year, there is a standalone grant for the informal settlements upgrading called the Informal Settlements Upgrading Partnership Grant. And this grant has been created so that dedicated funding can be available to upgrade informal settlements in situ. Because previously, when this funding was within the Human Settlements Development Grant, the upgrading of the informal settlements in situ was not done to a level that was desired, hence the decision to have this dedicated funding. However, the committee should note that the Human Settlements Development Grant is still allowed to respond to upgrading of informal settlements over and above this dedicated standalone grant. And the other thing that we want to indicate to the committee is that the title deeds restoration grant has been incorporated back into the Human Settlements Development Grant to continue with the registration of the title deed. This is because previously this grant was created to eradicate the backlogs in the registration of the title deeds. However, it has from the beginning of the coming financial year, 2021-22, it will be incorporated back into the HSDG. Thank you very much, committee members. I'll hand over to my colleague, Letsepa.
Thank you, Chairperson, for the opportunity. Good afternoon, honorable members and colleagues. My name is Litse Papakis. I'm the director that is responsible for the local government fiscal framework. I will be taking you through the transfers to local government. As you can see in this table, I don't think I'm gonna deliberate more on the equitable share, as that one has been mentioned in the introductory slides. But my next slide will really just show the impact of the reduction on the equitable share. In terms of this, sorry, Luvabalo, can you go back to the previous slide? Yes, in terms of this one, I'll only focus on the conditional grants. We've already indicated an incredible a growth rate there over the MTF of 7.3%. And I think this is after a reduction of about 2 billion has been made in the local government conditional grants. And that reduction was mainly on the municipal infrastructure grant, which mainly is being reprioritized to fund the non-returning councillors after the local government elections. There's also other reductions that were made, which amount to 1.2 billion over the MTF, and those were really made from the PTNG, the Public Transport Network Grant, which really is underspent over the last couple of years, with only 6 of the 13 municipalities that receive it that really have been able to actually have those in place. In the next slide, we show the impact of the reduction in the equitable share. So the honorable members will be aware of the local government equitable share formula, the main components there, with the biggest being the free basic services, which assist municipalities to provide the basic services like water, electricity, sanitation, and refuse removal. So the biggest chunk there, which is 79%, is allocated to that component. And then the other 2 components, which is your institutional component as well as the community component, are the ones that really fund, the redistributive effect of the formula. And although we typically allocate 100% of the households, poor households that fall below the threshold, we're unable to do that in this budget because of the reduction. And because of that, we have had to actually provide this subsidy to a lesser number of households, which is still high because it's 96% in the first year. And this we did in order to be able to fund your most rural of the municipalities, whose actually main allocation come from the institutional and the community services, because we're seeing a trend where poverty is urbanizing, and because the funds follow the function, therefore most of the funds will then go to your metros. And if we didn't do this, the most rural would have been impacted. So when we applied, all the updates to the formula using the approved general households survey data from State SA, as well as looking at the latest approved numbers from NESA and the average increases from the water boards, that becomes the impact. In the next slide, honorable members, we show the changes to conditional grants here. With your permission, Chair, I would like not to speak to the informal settlement upgrading partnership grant, because the similar approach that Bongani explained is the same here. It's just that this one goes to the metros, but it's also, it was also tested in the USDG, and now this dedicated funding should be able to assist the metros to provide the bulk services that they need to provide in terms of informal settlements. In the next one, Honorable Chair, we used to have, sorry, I'm in the next point. Can you go back to, Yes, yes. We used to have a grant. We called it the Integrated City Development Grant. And now it has changed its name to a program and project preparation support grant. And this grant basically has been repurposed to focus on providing a project and a program preparation, hence the name change. And also it was also piloted in the current financial year, and now it's in the next year it will be fully implemented as such. The honorable members will note that the issue of maintenance at a municipal level is still a big problem. And as a result of numerous discussions with MISA, SALGA, DCoG, as well as other sector departments, we've then decided to focus on this matter, but to begin by creating more like a buffer, which is about 5% of the municipality's allocation for the municipal infrastructure grants, will then be used from the next financial year to fund or to develop infrastructure asset management plans. And this is just a start, because there are ongoing discussions that we're having that were mandated by the budget forum, where we're looking at the whole asset management value chain. We anticipate that we should be able to have a way forward when we come back in the midterm budget. Other recommendations that come from the budget forum, if you can move to the next slide. Yes, include a rigorous approach, in terms of how enforcement of legislation happens, where actually we need to start seeing consequence management, at municipal level, doing away with unfunded budgets and all this. There's also an agreement at that level that there is a need to manage the risk of the local government elections. The experience here and the observed research is that there is a culture of non-payment in terms of at this time, where municipalities would not enforce the credit controls to the maximum because it's an election year. So we're saying at a political level, it must be clear. We must speak with one voice in terms of trying to assist municipalities to recover or to recoup, the revenues that they are being owed. Another game changer is an agreement that all spheres of government need to collaborate to ensure that ESCOM actually signs the service delivery agreement. And it's reported by the municipalities that the most important lever that is available to them in terms of actually being able to enforce the collection of revenues from the households and businesses is actually the use of electricity as a credit control measure. So ESCOM needs to come on board and assist us in terms of that. There are other mitigating strategies then, Chair and honorable members, that are being expedited to assist, in mitigating the reductions so that they don't impact service delivery on the ground. And a number of these reforms, would include on the revenue side, National Treasury's efforts, where the revenue advisors will train the provincial treasuries on municipal revenue enhancement initiatives. Those will help municipalities to set your cost reflective and improve revenue collection. Then on the expenditure side, though municipalities are expected to compensate for some of the impacts of the reduction by improving efficiencies. And a good example there to start would have been, not agreeing on an unaffordable, wage agreement, such as the one, that was signed and implemented by some municipalities in July, which would cost the municipalities in the region of 6.25%. So those measures really would assist municipalities to be able to afford to deal with the cut. And I must say, Chair, that even though we're not finding the full number of how poor households, even the municipalities had not reached the level at which we were funding those households. We're still seeing a large number of, or a huge portion of the budget being spent on compensation and also maintaining a big administrations of the municipalities. And there's a paper there that was presented in the budget forum, which really speaks to that, which shows that actually the municipalities don't have the fit for purpose organizational structures. A lot of money that could be redirected to service delivery is actually servicing the large municipal inward components, and DCoG has affirmed its efforts there, and they will be assisting municipalities in the short and medium term to actually have those fit for purpose organizational structures. The levers that we have then, Chair, in order to assist the municipalities to ensure that those that are less capacitated are able to be assisted if a district within that municipality is actually capacitated to be able to deal with actually assisting that municipality. So funds would then be given to a district that would be able to assist the local within its jurisdiction. So there are a number of conversations that we have with Cogta in that regard, especially in identifying those strong districts that would be able to assist in that. And this, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, is linked to the district development model, which, to this end, the Municipal Systems Improvement Grant as scope has been extended to fund a comprehensive institutional diagnosis assessment of the 21 district areas with the which are water service authorities. These should assist in ensuring that actually, we implement the district development model and they are able to assist the locals within them. In essence, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, these interventions will unlock, major investments and create employment. It is anticipated that, this will result in several households being able to pay their municipal services, and this will also assist the municipalities to get better in terms of the where they are in terms of their finances, but it will also assist the fiscals which is currently struggling. With all that, I thank you for my side.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, honorable members. I am Zetu in the Intergovernmental Policy and Planning Chief Directorate at the Treasury. I'll be taking you through the changes to the Division of Revenue Bill clauses, followed by a summary of the responses to the recommendations made by the Financial and Fiscal Commission on the 2021 Division of Revenue. This slide covers two policy adjustments that are made in 2021. The first one is the replacement of all reference to declared disasters as a sort of a condition for the release of the funds, or as a trigger for the release of funds, with classified disasters. This is intended to better align with the requirements in the Disaster Management Act, particularly around the designation of primary responsibility for coordinating and managing a disaster. This will also allow the NDMC to quickly respond to disasters, even in cases where provinces and municipalities, for one other reason, experience delays in declaring their disasters. A second is the omission of the requirement for the 8 metros to submit built environment performance plans, BEPS, as a means to access grant funding. This has been an additional planning, budgeting, and reporting requirement for the metros, intended to assist the country meet the spatial transformation objectives as outlined in the National Development Plan. When introduced, the idea was that these, or the BEP reforms rather, would be incrementally incorporated into longer planning documents. This is the case with the CSP, who has been leading the BEP reforms, along with a number of other stakeholders. They've developed a metro-specific IDP and a assessment framework for this, awaiting approval by the Minister of Cogta. Once this is done, which is anticipated will be the case by the start of the financial year, this will come into full effect. We made a number of other small or technical adjustments. These are attached as an extra to this presentation. Next slide, please. The responses to the FFC's recommendations contained in the explanatory memo of the Division of Revenue are limited to those that were classified as related to the Division of Revenue in terms of the Intergovernmental Fiscal Relations Act. Those that were classified as unrelated were forwarded to the relevant ministries for them to respond directly to the FFC. This was done last year. The draft responses, next slide, please. The responses as captured in the explanatory memo take account of the inputs that were received from our stakeholders at national and provincial level, and government broadly agrees with these recommendations. The first one there is for the macroeconomic framework to be in line with the President's economic and social support response to respond to COVID-19. The recommendation had explicitly said that the fiscal provisions for this must be outlined in the money bills. The response notes that this is the case with the fiscal provisions outlined in the Division of Revenue Bill as well as the Appropriation Bill. But in the actual response in the explanatory memo, we speak to the Economic Recovery Plan, briefly touch on the 4 priority reforms and the structural reforms that will be implemented parallel to this. With these combined, government estimates that we can raise growth to over 3% by 2030 and create over 1 million jobs. As the recovery plan has a focus on capital investment, we also speak to the infrastructure fund. Letepa has already touched on this. I think it's important to note here that we acknowledge that the implementation of such plans has always been a weakness for government. So to respond to this, the presidency and the National Treasury have set up Operation Vulindlela, which is a joint initiative that has been tasked with speeding up the implementation of the priority reforms. Next slide, please. The second recommendation there is for government to adopt a localized product value chain, which it is proposed it finds expression in the relevant conditional grants, particularly the incentive grants, by limiting the use of grant funds to the procurement of goods that are locally assembled. In principle, government agrees to this. We are all for efforts to address economic barriers and address social inequality. However, noting that the public procurement bill is not yet finalized and there isn't a clear idea of the full range of national, provincial, and municipal provisions. Most importantly, there isn't a preference points framework at the moment that is fair, competitive, or would allow for ease of administration. So only once these things are in place can we consider making hard conditions on the conditional grants. This is something that might likely be able to be done over the MTEF.
On the NHI, the recommendation was that government ensures that there is an enabling policy and legislative framework that considers the functions for each sphere, sets appropriate norms and standards, and that once this is rolled out, there be proper oversight of this. Government agrees. And in terms of any fiscal implications for any of the spheres, government will endeavor to ensure that the funds follow function principle is adhered to, and that this is consulted upon through the appropriate intergovernmental forums. Next slide, please. The next recommendation was for government to prioritize all non-profit and non-center-based ECD programs for infrastructure and registration. The FFC highlighting that the registration process needs to be simplified. The response notes that the Langalibalele campaign, which is led by the Department of Social Development, aims to do this. And part of the funds that were made available in 2020 through the Presidential Employment Initiative have also been used for this purpose and the development of a database of registered and unregistered centers, as well as the practitioners. With respect to prioritizing infrastructure, the SED grant continues to do this for unregistered and conditionally registered ECDs. The fourth there is for government to spearhead the development of a holistic funding framework to ensure a uniform approach to funding learners with special educational needs. Government agrees, and this is something that the Department of Basic Education is already doing, in the process of doing. Next slide, please. So the FFC made two sort of related recommendations on the provincial equitable share. One was for in the health and education sectors, pursue efforts to cost the norms that have been developed, which would initially be used to determine provincial expenditure or under expenditure, but in the long term be considered for incorporation into the formula. The other was for the formula to be updated to account for higher costs of providing services to vulnerable groups. This was an interesting one. It included accounting for age and gender differences. The response notes that we are in support of using or improving our data-driven allocation methodologies. However, we caution the use of using costed or using actual cost as the basis of allocations, as this could encourage inefficient spending. Also, in the response, we note the limitations of formulas such as the equitable share, in that the expectation that a formula that is supposed to allocate funding fairly and equitably across 9 provinces would ever be able to fully account for the actual costs incurred by each province. What we note here is that as part of the PES review, the working group is open to engaging with the FFC, because there's scope to consider or quantifiable cost drivers that can be measured fairly and consistently amongst the 9 provinces. The last recommendation there was the creation of an indirect grant to provide support to emerging farmers. Here we agree that emerging farmers do have the potential to play an important role in driving local economic development and economic growth broadly. However, we do not support the introduction of an indirect grant. There is already funding in the grant system that provides not just funding, but technical support as well. this can be improved, or the use of these funds can be improved. Possibly the introduction of technologies that will make the farmers be more competitive. With respect to the indirect grants, we feel government is of the view that provinces and municipalities should be allowed to perform their mandated functions. So these should not be bypassed by indirect grants and restrictive ring fencing. That is it from me. Bongani will now come in on the responses to SCORE and SECORE recommendations. Thanks.
Thank you, Bongani. Welcome.
Good afternoon again, Chairperson, honorable members and colleagues. I will be quick on this slide. For the recommendation of the committees, this is a very highly summarized slide. We want to draw the attention of the committee to the fact that responses in detail are contained in Annex A of the 2021 budget review. So in terms of just presenting to the committee some of the recommendation and the highly summarized the responses that the committee wanted to know the impact of the reductions to the grants that happened. We have referred this recommendation to the relevant departments through the letter from Minister of Finance to the relevant ministers for them to respond directly to the committee so that they can give proper details of how the grants have been impacted in terms of the service delivery. Also, the committees made a recommendation in terms of the stimulus package for job creation opportunities. With this one, the presidency has developed a very rigorous reporting requirement that requires the beneficiaries, which would be the national departments and the provinces, to report on a monthly basis in terms of the expenditure for this stimulus package. Also, in terms of the recommendation for the rollovers were approved as per the committee's recommendation. So in terms of the finalization of the draft public procurement bill, we do agree with the committees that this should be finalized. However, we also want to note that in terms of this recommendation, the economic recovery plan that was announced by the president largely addresses the recommendation that was made with respect to this public procurement bill. So also in terms of the revenue collection, we want to highlight that the revenue collection is mainly the municipality's responsibility. However, in terms of supporting municipalities in enhancing their revenue collection, both National Treasury and Department of Cooperative Governance, when supporting the municipality, now they are coming through one channel. There is no longer going to be disaggregated support. So municipalities will be assisted. In terms of the reviewing of the provincial equitable share and the local government equitable share, these ones have already been highlighted during the presentation. However, it should be noted that also FFC is part of the task team for reviewing of the provincial equitable share, and they can contribute in that aspect in terms of some of the recommendations that were put forward in terms of the recommendations to the Division of Revenue. Thank you very much, Chairperson and the committee members.
Thank you very much to the presenters, team National Treasury, whereby I, just for the sake of following in terms of who presented, am I audible? Hello?
Yes, you're audible.
Yes, okay. Yeah, just for the members to follow in terms of the presenters is that we are having Wendy, Litsepa, Bongani, and Zetu in terms of the presenters. So the purpose of today, just to re-emphasize, is the 2021 Division of Revenue bill, briefing from National Treasury. So a lot of, in terms of the presentations, have been, it's a very comprehensive presentation, which covered very detailed areas in terms of allocations to provinces, municipalities, departments, types of grants, policy matters, and formulas that are being used. So, and all is for the purpose of service delivery. So I think that is the presentation that we have received, and then that we will give now an opportunity for the committee members to ask questions for clarity, to make inputs, and then we'll take it then from there. Thank you very much. Can we get Lubabalo in terms of indication of hands? Who are there?
Okay, so far, Honorable Jatu, we have Honorable Ryder, Honorable Dudoit, and Honorable Molezane.
Thank you very much. Any further hands? Okay, then let's then start with the 3 hands that we have. Honorable Ryder, Honorable Dudoit, Honorable Molezane, Honorable Ryder.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And yeah, thanks to Treasury for the presentations, as always. Obviously, there's quite a lot to digest in a fairly short time, and many questions already arisen, but many more to come. I'd like to focus first, please, on the allocations to local government. And I note that still it's more or less 9% of DORA that gets allocated to local government. Slightly up, which I think is appreciated, but still questioning if it is enough. And let me focus my question a little bit more. So I posed a written question to the Minister of Finance about the number of municipalities that are currently presenting unfunded budgets to Treasury. And the Minister's response actually came back 2 days ago and then was the subject of a newspaper article this morning. But almost 40%, around 40% of municipalities are adopting unfunded budgets. Now, not only is this against the MFMA, it's massively problematic because, of course, we all know that a lot of even the funded budgets are made up of kind of Hail Mary estimations of revenue collection, with no basis in history and no basis in fact. Municipalities that have historically had collection rates of 40% using 60% collection rates to make their budgets balanced. So the question is that, we keep coming back here every year. Every year we're sending some money across to local government, which is marvelous. But every year we end up with the Auditor General coming in a different part of the cycle and telling us how badly municipalities have done and how things have gone awry there. And we have municipalities responding by saying they've got legacy ESCOM bills, they've got legacy water provision bills, bulk water supply bills from the various suppliers that they get from, that they're struggling to catch up with. So what we did last year is we sat in these meetings and we agreed that there would be a nice big lechotla, a budget lechotla with local government, and the issues around the funding of local government would be well ventilated at that budget lechotla, and that there would be some good outcomes. We're here today and I've heard no mention of the outcomes of that budget lechotla. So I'd like to hear, certainly from Treasury's point of view, what happened in the local government budget lechotla, because I think we did ask to be included in that as, if not participants, certainly as observers. I know I asked for it. I don't know if the committee formally asked for that. But certainly the way that we're funding local government can't continue like it is. The fact is that local government is spending money badly, and there's no doubt about that. So the money that we are giving them is not always put to best use. But you know, the whole model of how local government is being funded at the moment is questionable. So I'd like to hear more from Treasury about, you know, what are the outcomes of that local government budget for Kotla, and how we're going to deal with these things going forward, specifically with the large amounts that are owed in terms of legacy debt for the bulk supply of electricity and water. In terms of equitable share, I would like to know, please, where I can find a resource that can tell me more or less how, no, not more or less, tell me exactly how or what variables are included when calculating equitable share. Is it a straight line formula based on population size? Is it the size of indigent or expected indigent population? Is it based on Stats SA's evaluations, or on the municipality's own interpretations and gathering of indigent statistics and registration of people as indigents? If you can give me just an idea where I can find some more information about equitable share, how it's calculated, and exactly what it's meant to be spent on. Which leads me to the next question. Is there any monitoring on what equitable share is being spent on? Do we know that it's being used and applied first and foremost in payment of current bulk services, and then in terms of normal service delivery, or do we have any examples where it's used to buy Mercedes Benzes or mayoral villas? Is there any monitoring that happens? Is there any way that we can track that sort of thing? Is my next question. Third question, Chair, relates to the 350 Rand grant, the additional grant. I'm not sure it belongs here in this discussion. I think this is more around a different segment of DORA. But just some comments around the extension of the 350 Rand grant. Is that going to be rolled out to provinces, or will that be handled at a national level as well? And then specifically on some of the conditional grants that go to provincial government, a bit more information. So, example, the housing grant, provision of housing, is that going to be changed? We've heard Minister Sisulu in the NCOP telling us that the method of giving people housing opportunities was her word, I think, but of providing housing was going to change, and we were going to move towards a more site and service delivery form. Has this been taken into account with the rollout of the budget? Is this something that Treasury has supported, etc.? And then also a little bit more meat, please, on the bones of what's happening on the conditional grants going out to provinces. You know, if you can indicate to us, health, I see, has had quite a big whack, but how much of that is going to be a direct grant and how much is indirect? That move from direct to indirect has a big role to play in terms of how provinces budget and function. And if we can have an idea, is there, we've seen a bit of a move towards some centralization of power or control from Treasury, certainly when it comes to some of the national department allocations. But, has the same happened with the provincial budget allocations? Is there more happening in terms of grants that will be managed and the rollouts managed by Treasury rather than allocating the funds to the individual provinces to manage? Chair, that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Ryder. Honourable Tweet.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Honourable Chair, a few questions on page 17, referring to responding to the COVID-19 and the billions that has been added to the provincial equitable share. What measures are in place to prevent corruption from taking place? Because this was an issue when money was availed the previous time, and it was said that additional measures were to be put in place. If you could just have more information on that. On page 20 of the presentation, if National Treasury could please elaborate on the 3.7% growth for council support. What does that entail? Page 21. How many households in total are making use of the free basic services at this stage, and what was the growth over the past 2 years? Page 24, the unaffordable wage agreements. What is National Treasury's view on municipalities that paid a danger pay or a danger incentive to the employees for working during the hard lockdown 2020 and the beginning of 2021? If I can just have their take on that. And then lastly, page 32, with regards to the different grants made available for emerging farmers. How many different grants, direct and indirect, are available for emerging or upcoming farmers to make use of? Because I know that grants are available from different entities, and like the Development Bank, and obviously the National Treasury has that information, if that could be shared with us as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Tuit. Honorable Molatane.
Thank you, Chair. Let me first start by welcoming the presentation. And also, I want to welcome the progress at last that is happening to review the model that is used for distribution of division of revenue. And one does hope that they will speed up the process, especially when one looks at the present model that is used, the little percentage that is given the local government. And at the same time, the very same local government, they are finding themselves in the very difficult situation of this pandemic. So I hope that soon we'll hear good news. One won't comment much until I hear about how do they suggest to change, to do the changes. Because honestly speaking, that model is overdue. Looking at the challenges that we are experiencing of now late. So I want to at least just to comment about that for now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Molatane. Yeah, it's a mouthful. I think we will give to Team Treasury to respond, and then we will have then a second round.
Thank you very much. What I'll do is I'll ask Jan to start with the, some of the local government questions. And then I can also ask Letsepa to go through the one slide that is missed, and that is to give a bit of more details on the outcomes of the Lekgotla that's taken place on local government, and also indicate that that is the first and second Lekgotlas have really taken place, and maybe just highlight the third one that's also in the pipeline. Then I will deal with the rest of the questions as well. Ulrika, can you also come in, please, on the housing related issues? So Jan, can you please start?
Good afternoon, Honourable Chair and members. Thanks for very interesting and tough questions that you have posed to us as a Treasury. My responsibility in the National Treasury Chair is to oversee the budget process in our municipal space, and the issue about funded budgets is at the heart of the reform that we're trying to facilitate. So, Chair, when the municipalities tabled and adopted their budgets for the current year that we're busy implementing, there was 106 municipalities that did not table funded budgets. We as a Treasury team, Team Finance, ourselves and Provincial Treasuries, as a practice, Chair, we assess all municipal budgets, the National Treasury for the 17 big cities, and the Provincial Treasuries for the rest. That's a service that we have now provided as a standard to all municipalities. The methodology that we've developed, Chair, is essentially to determine whether the budget is funded in terms of Section 18 of the MFMA. Unfortunately, what happens in most of these councils is that they consider the information that's being presented by the administration, and they don't necessarily share with our councillors the Treasury's view of the world. Chair, and progressively, the fact that this is now in the public domain is also assisting us to lift the problem. We firmly believe, Chair, if you don't deal with the planning and the budget challenges up front, we will not be in a position, Chair, to resolve the issues that the Auditor General raised. So much of our time and effort is being spent on helping municipalities to improve their planning and their budgeting practices. So, Chair, coincidentally, in this week, normally we issue 2 budget circulars. And if the honourable member would like to look at that, the circular 108 was issued on the 8th of March. It also talks to the issue about the danger allowance for COVID. Chair, on this matter, SALGA has made a pronouncement, and we've in the budget circular articulated the criteria and what municipalities have to do and to consider before they pay an allowance like that. Our personal view is that we should not entertain this, but this is a bargaining and a SALGA-related matter. So, Chair, they have pronounced on that, and we've given our views in the budget circular for municipalities. So, Chair, we have managed to reduce the 106 unfunded budgets to 95. And those municipalities that didn't take our responsibility and our advice seriously, Chair, we have, as agreed at the Budget Council and Budget Forum, delayed the transfer of the equitable share in order to make sure that municipalities start taking this responsibility seriously. Chair, the equitable share is now 9.4%, but I think that the colleagues will share with you, Chair, municipalities, unlike provinces, have extensive tax powers. Now, unfortunately, Chair, we've released the second quarter results on the 3rd of March of their second quarter performance, both financial overwise, but also then conditional grants. And Chair, you will see in that publication that the debtors amount, outstanding debtors is now standing at 250 billion rand, Chair. Practically what it means, members of this committee, is that municipalities have delivered a service, they've submitted invoices, but they have not collected 250 billion rand of revenue that technically belongs to them. Now, we know there's a part that's historical in nature, but the point is you can't rely on the national fiscus to then finance all your activities if you have extensive tax powers. Chair, as far as the monitoring of the equitable share and what municipalities are doing with that, Chair, I can say with absolute confidence, if you look on our website, there's a spreadsheet where we indicate how the equitable share is calculated, and it's also in the Division of Revenue Bill Annex AW. So again, my colleagues will talk about that. Chair, the point is, if you look practically, you will see municipalities do not use the subsidy that the fiscus make available to translate that into the indigents. So there's a definite mismatch. Chairperson, we have also facilitated the MSCOA reform, and I'm sure the members have heard about the MSCOA reform. But technically what it means, Chair, in the future, we will be able to demonstrate to Parliament per municipality exactly to the cent what municipalities do with the equitable share. Unfortunately, Chair, instead of using that money to take care of the poorest of the poor, municipalities use it to pay creditors because they do not collect their revenue. And this is the 250 billion that I'm referring to, Chair. So, Chair, perhaps we can share the budget circular with the Secretariat, as well as the second quarter results that will enable the members to get a feel of the monitoring and oversight that we've institutionalized over the last 12 years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Jan. My apology that I didn't add you to the team. I hope that I didn't left out any other person. But thank you very much. Can we get, I think the budget circle, you say the budget circle review. I think that's a very important aspect that I think if members could get that will be very important. Can we get further responses?
Certainly. Can I then ask Ulrika to come in with the housing issue, and then Letsepa with the Lekgotla issues, and also exactly where we can get information on the local government equitable share. So first Letsepa, and then first Ulrika, and then Letsepa. Thanks.
Thank you, Wendy, and good afternoon, honourable members. So with respect to Honourable Ryder's question, the Human Settlements Development Grant pays for a whole range of subsidy instruments within the broader housing program. And the business plans that provinces then put together will then determine, you know, which of the various instruments and kind of programs within the broader program department the sector will prioritize. So in relation to wanting to change track within the broader housing program, the housing code and the housing subsidy policy already has the kind of instruments in place to do, for example, what the Informal Settlements Upgrading Partnership Grant does in relation to in situ upgrading for informal settlements. So what I'm trying to say is that the allocations on the Human Settlements Development Grant already caters for how provinces decide on how they want to implement any announcements that was made by the minister, because the instruments exist, whether they are kind of project-linked subsidies and shifting away from broader contractor development programs to individual subsidy programs. The policy framework allows for that, which means the funding can then already be provided to deal with those kind of initiatives, whether they are individual subsidies that are linked to credit or not to credit, whether they're linked to just to kind of sites and services, and whether they are consolidation subsidies. They are all provided for within the broader HSDG framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ulrich. Thank you very much. We can continue further presentations.
Letsepa, if you can put the slide on which shows the outcomes of the budget forum Lekgotla, please.
I can't. Oh, let me. Okay, I think I've been allowed to do that. Honorable members, let me start with slide 24. In slide 24, it's actually slide 23. Slide 23 really shows the outcomes or the recommendations that came from the budget forum Lekgotla, where matters such as dealing with the risk associated with local government elections, and matters that relate to dealing with the government and political leadership, the interface with administration. So all those matters were dealt with in the first Lekgotla. Then there was the second Lekgotla, Honorable Chair. It's part of the pack as an annexure. So if I can just go there for your, so it's part of the annexure here. So here was really looking at the whole functional arrangement and as well as the fiscal framework. It was held on the 11th of December, where a number of matters were deliberated on. And as a result, you know, the institutions that participated in this, which were mainly the SALGA, DCoG, as well as the Treasury, you know, all had papers to share, and then the deliberations and the way forward was paved from those discussions. Just to mention a few things that, you know, how the approach in terms of taking the work of the Lekgotla forward, you know, we had, you know, some short-term tasks and programs and activities that we have to do and go back to Lekgotla with as the working groups. So those were divided in terms of the short, the medium, and the long term. So each of the institutions, you know, have something to do there. And it also covered, you know, matters that relate, you know, to the municipal clearance certificate, how those could be expedited and so forth. And now, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, we're actually beginning the work of the third budget forum, Lekgotla. This one is looking at infrastructure and asset, in fact, the whole asset management value chain, where we're looking at the infrastructure, how it's funded, how it should be funded, the available levers there, as well as the maintenance issue, how then that could be tackled. Because if you tackle the maintenance issue, you are able to prolong the life of an asset, and thereby, you know, getting value for money, and that's been a local government's Achilles heel in terms of lack of maintenance. So that is being dealt with in the next budget Lekgotla, which we actually deliberating on and preparing papers on. I'm sure the honorable members, if they want to be part of that, they could be invited. In terms of the local government, the Equita will share in terms of the variables that are there. We explain those in the Division of Revenue Bill in Annexure W1 of it, and we would be happy to share that with the secretaries of the committee, so that they can share it with the members, and would also be able to take through the honorable members if they need us to try to help them go through it. That's it from my side, Honorable Chair. Thank you for your time.
Maruma, I don't know if you're on the line to deal with the COVID-related issues.
Thank you, Wendy, and good afternoon to Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. I think the question there was, I mean, in relation to the additions that have been made in the 20.
Maruma, just unmute yourself, please. You've muted yourself.
Oh, sorry. I think somehow it got muted. Yeah, I was saying that the question there relates to the 8 billion that has been added to the health sector, as well as the issues. I mean, the allegations of corruptions that have been in the media. I mean, since this COVID started. I think, I mean, the way in which I'll answer this question, honorable member, is that the reason why we add this money into the system. I mean, we add this money because we believe that there is a need. In fact, we know that there is a need. I mean, there are health workers, I mean, that are waking up every day, going to our health facilities, and some of them working throughout the night to try and look after those that need the health services. And in order for them to do that, I mean, they need the tools of trade. And the tools of trade in this regard is the PPEs, I mean, the masks, etc., and so forth. But I think then it becomes unfortunate that, I mean, during the procurement process or the procurement of those PPEs, I mean, there are a whole lot of things that then happens, I mean, that are not really, I mean, that in the public domain. But having said that, I mean, I must indicate that, I mean, our office of the OCPO, I mean, the Chief Procurement Office has been really working very hard, I mean, to try and make sure that each province, start to publish, in the public domain, some of the contracts that have been awarded that relates to these PPEs, the names of the companies that are receiving these contracts, when those companies have been started, so that everyone would be able to then understand who gets to benefit. So those strategies, it's the work that the office has been trying over the years, over a couple of months, to try and make sure that government is as transparent as possible, in terms of having the public understanding who gets to benefit from this contract. But in terms of the money, I think there is a need. As we've seen, with the second wave that hit us earlier than expected, and as a result, some of the provinces, there were some pressures there, which needed us, to even, start to inject this money, going forward in preparation of the third wave and the fourth wave as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take the last questions after we finish the round robin. I'm the last round robin to take the other questions that's been posed. The question has been asked whether there's a move towards centralization of the provincial conditional grants, and the answer is no. In terms of, and the question most probably also relates to the money that's made available to provinces to respond to COVID. The largest allocation, the 8 billion that's allocated through the provincial equitable share, is made available to provinces directly to deal with any expenditure related to the current second wave and also any consequent waves that we can experience. And then money is also made available to provinces to deal with the vaccine rollout. And that is also a direct grant through the HIV/AIDS grant. But the purchasing of the vaccine, that has been centralized for very obvious reasons. Currently, there's a scarcity in terms of the COVID vaccine, and a worldwide scarcity is being experienced. So it is best for the country to centralize that and try to, through negotiations countrywide, internationally, to also then focus on securing the vaccines that we so direly need, rather than devolving that to a provincial level. Then the issue was also asked, how many conditional grants are in place to respond to the agriculture and emerging farmers? And to advise the committee that there's 3 conditional grants in place, they're all direct. What that means is that the money goes directly to provinces. An indirect grant is whether the national department performs a function on behalf of a province or a municipality, so they retain the money and spend the money on behalf of a province or municipality. In terms of agriculture, there's 3 direct grants. So the biggest one is what, and has also been in place for many, many years, is the Comprehensive Agriculture Support Program grant, also often referred to as CASP. That's the biggest grant in place. Then there's also a Lima Letsema Projects grant, and there's also a Land Care Program grant, Poverty Relief and Infrastructure Development. And it is the conditional grant frameworks that contain quite a bit of detail on what each grant intends to do is contained in the Division of Revenue Bill under the provincial conditional grant frameworks. Then another question that's been asked, and hopefully that's the last one, the question about 350 grant that's been extended for another 4 months. And where would it be dealt with? Similar to the regional allocation of 350 grant that's been managed by National Department, it will be continued to be managed by the National Department. And therefore, it's not an issue for the Division of Revenue, but it's an issue of the appropriation bill that will be coming to the committee after the Division of Revenue bill has been processed through the NCOP as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Are you done?
Thank you very much. Yes, we're done with this round of questions.
Thank you very much, Wendy, and also thank you to Marumo, who also was added to the national team at National Treasury. Members, now when I look at time, it's close to 4:45. We will give another round, a second round, which will be the last round. I was also informed that provinces chairpersons was also invited. I will also allow, if there are any of them for any question, we'll also give them an opportunity in this round because it will be a last round. Then we will give the last round of questions to members. It's open for members. Any questions?
Thanks very much.
Honorable member, Honorable PC, yes.
Thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity. Just one question, and I maybe will be assisted. I think when Mr. Jan Hatting was responding on the non-collection of revenue by municipality, and I thought you would give us a reason why there's no collection of revenue by most municipalities in the country, because we know the the challenges of some of the local municipalities that we have, the areas which they operate in may not have the capacity to do so, or equally the issue of the economic challenges faced by our people in those areas might be another issue. I thought you will elaborate as to what will be the issue or the advice that they will give to us as provinces to go back to our own provinces and say to our MECs and our HODs who are dealing with Cogta as well as Treasury on how to assist them to collect this revenue, because they are getting their equitable share from provinces, but we don't see the return in terms of them collecting money of the issues that we would have given to them as resources to do their work. I thought Jan would have responded to that. The last one, Chair, is the issue of the grants given to provinces. We know that we are pushing very hard as portfolio committees, particularly in the province, to make sure that the grants given to provinces are being used and are being used for that particular purpose, not for any other thing. Now, the challenge is, what about those that are not using those grants? Do we continue to give it to them, or what will be the next step going forward? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable PC. Just for the record, Honorable PC, you are from what province?
I'm from Gauteng, Chair. I'm chairperson of Finance and E-Government Portfolio Committee.
Thank you very much, Honorable PC. Any further questions to members?
Honorable Ryder, Chairperson.
Honorable Ryder.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. You know, whenever you ask for questions, my hand goes up automatically. Chair, yes. Just firstly, I'm not going to. I don't want to steal away from Treasury's response to the Honourable MPC, but you know, the fact is there should be no excuse for billing uncollectible debt. Municipalities need to have good indigency policies in place, and to make sure that indigents are correctly recorded, so that the right people are billed. There should be no reason to bill people that we know cannot pay. And that's what equitable share is there for, in my view. So, yeah, but I mean, Treasury will expand, I'm sure. But really, municipalities need to get up to speed with their indigency programs, to make sure that you don't have this crazy uncollectible debt that mounts up all over the balance sheets, and then has to be kept there, because otherwise, it changes the liquidity ratios, and actually makes balance sheets insolvent. That's a discussion for a whole day, I think. Nonetheless, but Chairperson, I wanted to specifically get back to Ms. Fano's responses, and I want to appreciate the responses. Mr. Harting, I really enjoyed your responses. Thank you. If I can ask you, please, you mentioned Treasury's website and the fact that equitable share is detailed there. Please send us a
Thank you, Honorable Rider. Can we get any further
Chairperson, yes.
questions? Yes.
Sorry, did you not hear any of that?
We got your question, Honorable Rider.
Okay. And then
Yes.
the last piece, Ms. Fano, just to say that you said that for obvious reasons, provinces are not supposed to be procuring vaccines. And then you kind of listed what you felt were the reasons, which made it more obvious to me that provinces should be permitted to try and procure their own vaccines, because, with the scarcity that one finds, we should not be limiting any procurement. So we should actually open up procurement so that, especially to a province, which is certainly more agile than a national department in terms of what they can do, the timeframes that they have to work with. So, if we can procure vaccines by any means, be it through province, be it through national government, we should be encouraging that for the safety and security of our population. So, we should not be shutting off any taps without first investigating them. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Just maybe for maybe the I think to be specific on the procurement of the vaccines. Yeah, I think that's a in terms of National Treasury, in terms of the Health Department, I think so that we, as the appropriation, not go into the detail of that, but so that we understand maybe from what angle the department is centralizing the procurement of the vaccine. I think all of us will say that we want to curb corruption and all those things. So I think there's a lot of reasons why it's national. So I'm just trying that we look in terms of maybe the presentations that we have received, so that we focus on that. Thank you very much. Any further questions?
Yeah, Chair, can I come back? It's MPC again.
Yes, Honorable MPC.
Not directly responding to Honorable Rider, who's also from my province. But the issue is that I think we have just answered the national centralization of the vaccine. And I think as the committee, we need not to actually even encourage that debate. We must allow National Treasury and the National Department of Health to do that. And I think so far, they are managing it very well. We know that it might be too slow for others, but I think we'll get there as the country. We would have loved to do that as Gauteng, but I think it is better placed at the national level. I think on the issue of the local government collection of revenue, Chair, I think it's something that we, in as much as Honorable Rider is correct, that the municipalities must bill correctly. But I think we know the conditions on the ground. Worse now that COVID-19 has also created more unemployment in our country. I think it's something that I think we should perhaps directed by national and structures, that we must find a better model to make sure that municipalities can collect revenue, but without closing our eyes on the realities on the ground that are forcing our people not to pay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable PC. Are there any further hands, Lubabalo?
Yes, Chairperson, there is Honorable Karim, Chair.
Honorable Karim?
Yes, Chairperson, just a quick thing. I don't want to enter into a long reply to Mr. Ryder, but I think that we should be very guarded about provincializing what is a national and global pandemic. So firstly, as I understand it, unless Treasury suggests otherwise, it's not possible for a provincial or a state in a federal structure, like say the Germany or something, to actually procure from the manufacturers vaccines. From what I gather, they will only give to national governments and national states. So firstly, it seems to be, until now, a position of the manufacturers themselves, sensibly in my view. Secondly, from what I can gather, and I could be wrong again, they will know better, the Treasury and others who are better equipped to answer these questions or respond to them, that in fact, the WHO doesn't encourage this either, but I could be wrong about that. Thirdly, I think one should be guarded against some provinces which are economically better off benefiting by getting their own vaccines, whether they're led by the ANC or any other province, any other party. Well, there's only one other party, and others. So for example, if you look at the socioeconomic profile of Eastern Cape, what would happen to them as against Gauteng? Let's just take that as an example. I mean, Makura and them, the premier there, they can do much more because they're the industrial hub of this country, economic hub, and they have more resources. They're more urbanized, if you like. So Mr. Inkosi and Mr. Ryder, Comrade Inkosi, I mean, and Mr. Ryder will end up with the vaccine. But will Zukisa get the vaccine? Or Zolani Mkiva get the vaccine? They might have the same socio-economic health profile, same comorbidities, but because Gauteng is such a powerful state and province compared to Eastern Cape, it will end up, and then what you will get, understandably, it's not peculiar to South Africa, people are doing this elsewhere. There's the guy that had to resign, isn't it, from the US big pension fund because he flew to the UAE to go and buy a vaccine. It said that Rupert also, our own South African Rupert did the same, it seems. I don't know if he bought the vaccine or what, but you know, they went to the UAE. So what I'm saying is we shouldn't encourage this really. I honestly think it's not really a debate we should encourage. Yes, we must all get the vaccine. Yes, let's put pressure, even as Parliament, even as the Finance Committee. Chair, let's not leave it to the Health Committee. I mean, really, it's our minister that seemed to be hesitant for a while in Treasury. They will present their arguments, Chairperson, I don't exchange. Offline, I've exchanged with officials from both sides and, well, at least one politician aside. Well, let me not talk about that. So what I'm saying in short is, I really think this is not necessary, this debate. We can have the debate, but I mean, I really don't agree with the position expressed by Mr. Ryder. Most certainly not. I would imagine most in the ANC, like Mr. Comrade Inkosi, will not agree. We don't want to encourage this inequality within our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Karim. Before we get a response from National Treasury, can we check again for any further hands, Babalo? Any further hands, Babalo?
No, Chairperson. No further
Okay.
hands.
Okay, then National Treasury, can you give us the last responses?
Thank you, Chairperson. Jan will open up with a response with regard to the non-collection of municipal revenues by municipalities and what needs to be done in that regard, and also further information on the indigent registers and ensuring that money gets spent correctly on the local government equitable share. And Emmanuel will give more Emmanuel Pillay will give more information on the grants given to provinces and what has been done to ensure that the money is spent for the purpose it's allocated for. So Jan, over to you.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, and the questions from the members. So, Chair, perhaps I can just add that slide 12 and 13 is a direct outcome of a session we've had with the Budget Council Lekgotla, as well as the Budget Forum Lekgotla. So those two slides, Chair, is a outcome of a decision that took place. On that date, the 31st of August, the Minister of Finance also issued a press release, and we can perhaps also share that with the members via the Secretariat. Chair, with regard to the issues and the points raised by the Honourable Member from Gauteng Province, I would advise that we also share with the members the State of Local Government report that we do once a year, as well as the report we do for Parliament on over and under expenditure. Chair, in those reports, we provide extensive detail on the underlying challenges that we're trying to resolve in the space of our municipalities. But Chair, if I have to summarize it, at the heart of the challenges on revenue collection is the ownership control issue. The fact that the Department of Public Works is helping us, Chair, to try and unpack this challenge, because if your property is not correctly registered in the deeds office and a municipality sends you a bill and you're not the owner of that property, that is the real challenge that we're trying to resolve, Chair. Obviously, the second part is the effort by municipalities to collect what is legitimately belonging to them. And this is where I think the Division of Revenue is trying to deal with those municipalities that have challenges that do not necessarily have a proper revenue base. That's the redistribution part that Wendy and the team is talking about, Chair. Yeah, I think that's the first part that I can deal with. Wendy, I'll come back if there's something that I've missed on the other parts. So the revenue strategy or the revenue improvement program, Chair, that my colleague has referred to, the integrated revenue strategy that we have developed between ourselves and Cogta, is essentially the vehicle, Chair, that we want to use to create the awareness, to capacitate municipalities, placing advisors that understand this area of work in the space of our provincial treasuries, and then progressively help the municipalities to really get their systems and part of the MSCOA reform, Chair. We've also made sure that the systems that's in the space of municipality can now properly generate billing. So that's the area of work, Chair, as a basket that we're offering. And as the process unfolds, we will be in a position to come back to the committee, Chair, from time to time to then share the challenges and what we have managed to resolve. It's unfortunate, not a simple task. The fact that we have accumulated the debtors book to the extent where it is now is part of the problem. We're also working very closely, Chair, with ESCOM and that team to understand how we can help each other. But at the heart of all our challenges is a funded budget, Chair. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Wendy, just before you finish your allocations of the questions, I just want to put in this one that I really forget to raise, is the issue of the NSFAS, the formula or challenges for the current situation which are there now. Can you just say something also on that so that we finish all the responses? Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I can just add to the response that Jan gave with regard to revenue collection, and also the point raised by Honourable Ryder regarding municipalities needing to have proper indigency registers in place, and that they shouldn't be collecting tariffs and from the indigent, is indeed a very important point, and it is something that requires consideration by municipalities to have proper indigency registers in place. And it's what needs to be done is a municipality, when they actually provide free basic services in the budget reforms that's been introduced and the MSCOA reports, there's a line that says there are no revenue foregone due to these subsidies given. So we can monitor also how much municipalities are actually giving in subsidies and the like. So that is a very important point that has been made, and that there's definitely further work needed by municipalities to improve the indigency registers. If I can then hand over to Emmanuel Pillay to deal with the question about the provincial grant performance. And Mampu, if I can ask you to deal with the NSFAS issue. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, and thank you for this opportunity. So in terms of the provincial grant performance, so we have over 100 billion rand over the past few years going to provincial departments in form of direct grants to provinces for the various sectors. So over the few years past, there's been an average spending of around between 95 to 97, 98% in terms of the allocations that we made as direct conditional grants. So part of the underspending on those grants actually rolled over to the next financial year. So it's not really that the entire 5% underspend is returned to the National Revenue Fund. Large part of it is actually rolled over. So what we found in terms of, while expenditure might look good in some instances, we find that there is a disjuncture between spending and actual performance when you look at the performance of the outputs that are listed in the framework and the business plans. And this was highlighted to a presentation we made in October to the committee, where we highlighted the disjuncture between performance and expenditure as such. But we do engage regularly with the national departments responsible for those grants. In fact, we met last week with the Department of Health, and we looked at conditional grant performance over the third quarter. So we meet with them on a quarterly basis to understand what's causing the disjunction in performance. Provinces are required to report to us on a quarterly basis, 45 days after the end of each quarter in terms of what the performance was. They also need to explain why they deviated from targets, and also explain remedial measures in terms of improving performance as well. So it is an ongoing engagement that we have with the provinces and national departments in terms of improving performance. But there's generally spending is good, but we do tend to see some issues in terms of correlation between performance and expenditure, although it's not all the grants, it's just a few of them. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson. With respect to the NSFAS, the team that is here today is a team that is responsible for the Division of Revenue Bill. The team that is responsible for appropriation will be coming to Parliament to present on this matters. We're just waiting for to be given the date by Parliament, and when we do get the date, the team will come and present on the allocations of national departments and the appropriation bill, and therefore we'll deal with the funding issues in NSFAS. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Chairperson. We're done.
Thank you very, very much. Yeah, I think we have come to the end of this meeting, whereby I want to thank Team National Treasury. I think it was very comprehensive presentations and reports, and some was very detailed, and it was greatly appreciated that one gets some detailed reports and very clear, straight to the point, so that to curb or to avoid lot of too many questions. But I think the questions that was raised was valuable questions, and we want to thank all the members for their contribution and questions raised, and also to thank the provinces who are here, because it is indeed for provinces to be informed, so that when provinces are going to discuss their provincial mandates, that provinces have a full informed in terms of their provincial mandates. So I think also to thank the administration of the committee for the work well done, and then I think we have come to the end of this meeting, and then the meeting is then adjourned. Thank you very much.
Well done, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Rider.
Baie dankie, voorzitter.
Baie dankie.
Well done, Chairperson. Well done, Chairperson. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Siyabulela Mgcina Mfondini.
Enkosi, Inkosi.
Nguwe kakade umuntu ofanele uba ube nguwe umuntu ofanele uba ube ngumgcini sihlalo apha ungumgcini.
Hey, Nkosi yami. Siyabulela Nkosi. Kamakho Nkosi, kamakho.
implement this project. The project is called, it's a SPIONCO project that increased the capacity of transferring water from the SPIONCO to Ladysmith up to Indaga. So upon our engagements, we then agreed that Umgeni, with its capacity, they were going to assist us, especially in townships and other rural our engagement areas. Hence, they were allocated 3 water treatment works to work on, so that we can increase the capacity of those schemes and begin to supply and to service those communities with the view that we're going to also to benefit when people, they were also going to pay for the service being rendered in those respective areas. But unfortunately, when the people, they were also going to pay, it could not for the service being rendered from both parties. Hence, there is a dispute as well as the litigation. So Cogta is assisting us to address those issues that we are having with Umgeni. Because some of the disputes also include the money or the amount that they are billing us, of which sometimes we are not in agreement with them in terms of what they are charging us. Then some of the issues I'll touch on. Then OMM and the team will also come in and assist where maybe I have left gaps. In the past, we used to have the contracted services in terms of the water tankering, which was costing the municipality a lot of money. And as a municipality for the last 2, almost 3 now, which was when the municipality to say a lot of money, let us do away with the hiring of water tankers. As we speak, we have ceased hiring water tankers. Reason being is that water tankers that were hired, they were mainly supplying areas, especially in the rural areas, where we are also not collecting. And that water being supplied according to water losses is regarded as a water loss. So then it's an issue that we'll have to then expand on later. We are currently using our own water tankers as a municipality to supply our communities within the district. Then on the issue of Inkosi, as it was raised about our communities complaining not having access to water, whereas then on the issue spring in the area of Inkosi, as part of the program, as it was raised about there is a provision of us to implement a project to secure that spring so that the people of Inkosi will also benefit out of that. But currently, water tankers are being dispatched to assist those communities. But we do understand that we don't have sufficient water tankers that can satisfy the demand of our people on the ground. But in terms of the plans, Inkosi, it is in Ward 24 under Alfred Duma. It is covered in terms of the current financial year projects that are underway. Then there was an issue that talked to the plans on the collections. Since it has been highlighted that we are not doing very well as a municipality in terms of the collections. Having admitted that as one of our weaknesses, and that is one of the causal factors or root causes for the province to put us under administration GA 139. With the support that we are receiving from Cogta and Treasury, we are trying to turn the situation around. Systems have been put in place, of which then OMM may elaborate in terms of those systems. to try and turn around in terms of the collection. The consequence management is also underway, dealing with the managers who were unable then to discharge their responsibilities in terms of implementing our strategy as a municipality for collections. In terms of the general outcry of water within the district, we have a plan through Chairperson, if I may just give a picture. As I've highlighted the issue of the aging infrastructure, as part of the previous and the current financial budget and projects, we have a project that is solely responsible to deal with the refurbishment of our existing schemes. There are 2 schemes under Okahlamba that are being refurbished, being old as they are in terms of capacity and otherwise, Moyeni Zwelisha as well as Langalibalele. They form part of those prioritized projects, which are part of this financial year, having started with the previous financial year. Then under Inkosi, Langalibalele, there is also a refurbishment as well as the replacement of the old infrastructure, especially with the pipes that are underground, which constantly they've been bursting. So changing them from asbestos to AC piping, which is a new technology that is currently being used now. Is one of the issues also trying to respond to the issues of aging infrastructure. I must also touch on Alfred Duma. There is currently a project underway, in fact 2 projects linked to Olifant Scope water treatment works, where we are refurbishing the water scheme, as well as the replacing the rising main, also increasing the capacity to the common reservoir, so that you can increase the capacity of water being provided to those communities who are benefiting from that scheme. We have also planned, but not as yet implemented as part of the priorities for this current financial year, the upgrade of Uthukela as well as Mfumayo schemes, but they are prioritized for the next financial year. Chairperson, I must also indicate that with the master plan that we have now, since the analysis and studies has been concluded, thank you to the support that we have received from Cogta to do the master plan. So now we know exactly which area does or does not have water. So we are then responding. There is a program that is focusing on the tapping of the underground water in terms of drilling of new hand pumps, boreholes, as well as the production boreholes. But there's a little bit of a challenge or a delays when it comes to the production boreholes because of the delays that are caused largely by the ESCOM in terms of energizing. Having built the infrastructure, but you have to wait for 3 to 6 months sometimes in order to get those production boreholes to be energized is one of the setbacks that we are faced with. And we are also pushing on the protection of the springs. Is one of those projects whom we believe that they will assist us to ensure that, especially areas where we don't have infrastructure, as we speak, we are prioritizing those areas so that then they can benefit out of these. So it's quite a long list of areas, and that information can be made available to you, Chairperson, and the committee to say which areas are going to benefit or have started benefiting. And we have also started the process of rolling out, handing over of those completed projects where people have begun to then access water through these interventions that we are currently implementing as a municipality. I will end there, Chairperson, then request my MM, Mr. Sichole Batin, to come in and fill the gaps in terms of what maybe I may have left out in terms of the questions that were raised earlier. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Executive Mayor. I thought you have responded to all the questions. Let me hand over to the MM.
Thank you, Chairperson, and greetings to yourself, the honorable members, their worships, the mayors, and the colleagues. Chairperson, yes, the mayor has covered most of the things, but I will touch on just few administrative matters that were raised by the members during the question session. The first one was around the collection, which the mayor has covered, but I just need to highlight that in terms of ensuring that the collection is increased, we are currently embarking on a project which is about installing smart meters, of which we are convinced with that project we should be able to see some sort of collection coming in. And also thanks to DBSA that there was a project which was completed early this year, where they assisted with data cleansing. At least about 8,000 of the 48,000 consumers whose data that has been cleansed are now able to receive the statements. We know that when those statements go out, they reach the rightful owners. There was a question around the fraudulent selling of water by our water tankers. That issue was reported to the municipality, and the investigation was conducted. And as we talk, there is a manager that is undergoing disciplinary action because of having not been able to attend to that matter and to ensure that such is kept. Another one question that was raised was around the use of the WSIG grant on conditions or outside the conditions of such grant. That, yes, was a finding by AG, and it was investigated, and it was discovered that in actual fact it arose from one of our officials not providing the business plan to AG when AG was actually auditing that particular grant. And such has now been resolved, and there was consequence management that was applied to the relevant manager that was supposed to have provided such information to AG at the time of such request being made. And another question was around the capacity within PMU. We must admit that as a rural municipality, we were unable to attract the requisite skills to the municipality, but to try and respond to that, using the business plan, we have been able to be approved by MIG to use 5% as a top slice to actually get additional skills into the municipality, to the extent that currently we have an additional 4 staff members who are qualified as technicians within the PMU department. Another one that was raised as a question was the issue of escalation of costs on projects. Yes, indeed, this was one of the problems that we were facing as the municipality. Amongst the reasons for such, which we have identified and kept, was the issue that projects were multi-year in nature. And of course, that meant that by the time the project is completed, after 3 or 4 years, the costs will be higher. We have now resolved, and we are using the approach where we ensure that where there is infrastructure, before the end of that financial year, water reaches people, which we call source to tap approach, and that is what is currently being used as an approach. And then, of course, the mayor did talk on the issue of aging infrastructure and the refurbishment business plan that has been approved. Another question that was raised was around the employees of government that are benefiting from our SCM processes. Indeed, it was like that at some stage when the municipality was still using its own database. We now are fully utilizing CSD, which is the national database where you go in there and you check the companies and the directors and compliance in terms of the SCM processes, and that system is able to pick up if somebody is employed by the state, and we are utilizing this system. And over and above that, there is MTB 4 forms which the directors of companies sign whenever they are putting tenders forward. So the system is now sort of watertight, and such may not necessarily happen again. And I think the mayor has touched on the issue of Umgeni, which is a worrying factor in terms of the creditors. But we're hoping with Cogta having come on board with the IGR mechanism of resolving problems, we're hoping that that will be the issue of the past, and we should be able to is either come out of the marriage and come out unharmed, or if the marriage carries on, it becomes a win-win situation. Chairperson, those were the questions that were of administration or administrative in nature, which I thought I should add on to the responses that the mayor has given. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Province. Can you respond to your questions as raised on the when exiting of the intervention, whether they've achieved the intended objectives? Is there no one from the province? Cogta, KZN, would like.
Chairperson, it's Joey Krishnan. My apologies, I was expecting my DDG to respond. Chairperson, in respect of Uthukela district, again, the intervention will be reviewed by the provincial executive. Its time for review is the 31st of March. So submissions are being made to the provincial executive. And then there will be consideration of the progress that has been made in accordance with the intervention objectives that originally took place, Chair. So at this stage, it would be premature for us administratively to say whether the intervention will end or not. But certainly we will note the gaps that have been identified still, as well as the progress that has been made in some areas. Thank you, Chair.
I see Honorable Kalipi's hand is up.
Yes, Chair.
Honorable
Yes, Chair, just want to raise some few issues. I have so many issues, others I will just send it through as a written a submission or questions, because I have reported to the group chairperson that I'm experiencing a load shedding lang corner, and my gadgets also cut nominating. But since I still have 1% on my phone, and currently I'm using my phone, chairperson, I just want to get a clarity from the mayor of the district in terms of the CFO and the general manager of water services. I'm not sure if it's true that they are suspended, they are attending a disciplinary hearing. If so, if the mayor can share with us what is in connection with. Because when I check on the AG's reports, Chair, I think it's bad. I was thinking that the mayor, without being responding to what we raised before, because I remember very well Honorable Mamkize was raising a number of issues, and I know that she's have a direct interest because she's from that particular municipality. But I thought that as a district mayor, Ubaba also Kaya, Wamanyama local municipalities will just take us into confidence, because when the AG is starting by saying that under material losses, you have a bad debt mayor, and then saying that 6.9 million and it was 13.39 million in 2018 was incurred as a result of write-off of irrecoverable trade debtors. I think that we are going to take us through as well, because it does not sounds very well. And if I can continue, Chairperson, on what the AG is raising on the predetermined objectives, the AG is raising a concern of connections that were made at Beguzulu and Sepangwen phase by saying that the report achievements of 689 is not reliable, as the municipality did not have adequate performance management system to maintain records, and reported value was not diligently reviewed and reconciled to the sources documents to enable reliable reporting on achievement of targets. And there are so many number of issues that the AG is raising, Chair, without reading them, including the number of households provided by the VIP toilets in Bigville sanitation project as well, whereby he is also stipulating that the achievement that the municipality was claiming of 531 is not reliable, as the municipality did not have adequate performance management system again. So it's also pointing out to the municipal system that you don't have proper system in place. And when you go further down to the report of the AG, it also says that the leadership is failing to take the necessary steps to act against whoever who are supposed to be who are supposed. I'm very tired now, Chairperson. I'm very sorry, but it's just simply saying that there is no proper system that is in place, and the leadership that is supposed to be trusted by people to take necessary steps against those people who are not taking actions. We are not doing that. So as a district mayor, you must please explain to us. And the last one that I was sent by a committee member, Chairperson, because if we are here as members of parliament engaging with municipalities, people, they are very much interested to see or to listen, just to follow the discussions. Because at some point, you as elected leadership, as mayors, speakers, councillors, you forgot your mandate, that you must take your mandate from the people. Who don't go and consult with the communities. So one person is raising an issue that says, I must raise in this portfolio committee the issue of a dam, saying that is Oliphant Scope Dam. According to this committee member, he's saying that there was supposed to be a report on a forensic investigation that took place, I don't know which year. But as a committee member, no one have also tried to explain to members of the community about this particular dam that was investigated, District Mayor. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Mkalibu. Is there any other member who want to engage, follow up, or you are covered? If none, then I will come in. Executive Mayor, your trend, it's qualified with finding, qualified with finding, qualified with finding. You are stagnant. When are you going to improve? You want to be known when you leave council end of this year to say, you know, we've been receiving qualifications throughout. And then I should think as Honorable Kalipi has said with regard to your UIFW, maybe you can share with us whether there's been any consequence management that has been effected thus far. Because the AG is on record that there seems to be no appetite, like you didn't investigate the irregular as well as the fruitless and wasteful expenditure. It was not investigated. That includes your unauthorized expenditure. And then when one looks at the figure, your irregular expenditure amounted to 245 million. Fruitless and wasteful expenditure to 1.9 million, and then unauthorized expenditure that amounted to 66.6 million. When you look at these figures, definitely they are massive, and we are not saying money has been stolen, but the mere fact that at the time of the audit, when this report was issued, there was no consequence management that has been executed on your side. Is it due to lack of the appetite to persuade those that are found wanting? Because when you look on this matter, some of them are solely based on your procurement and contract management irregularities. Then maybe you can share with us what steps have you taken against, because now it's almost a year since you got this report. And if indeed there's an appetite, I think we're going to receive a positive report to that effect, that yes, indeed, we've taken steps on these matters. Then the rest, I should think you've managed to respond to the questions adequately, so that one then won't be able to make follow-ups. Over to you, Maya and Tim.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I will start to clarify some of the issues because some also directed to me as a mayor. The issue on the CFO and the general manager water services. I wish to confirm that is true. It also part of our report that was sent to the committee to say that consequence management is underway in terms of disciplining those senior managers responsible for finance in general, as well as water and sanitation in general. So, and below that, OMM will also highlight, but as the council, we have taken that decision to institute the consequence management against these children. So with regards to the CFO, there is an issue that we're discussing because if you were to look at them, they come back 2-3 years. So the council took a decision based on the audit outcomes of the AG, as well as the issues of trying them to turn around it. Then on the GM, water services, is largely with regard to the provision of water in the district, as well as the management and control of his department. Those are the two issues. In terms of PMS, it's true that the AG did raise that issue. We had challenges in terms of the submission of information to AG, and on the ground we do have these projects in existence, and I think it was a matter of land reporting, and we have since addressed that issue and provided the POE that was missing when AG was doing the audit. So we do have e-portfolio of evidence available just to back up those statistics and figures in terms of pilots, as well as the number of households that benefited in terms of water installation as a canning section, as well as the VIP also installation as a canning section. So I think that is that. In terms of the consultation with communities, we do consult almost on a regular basis with various communities throughout the district, and we have a portfolio of evidence that we've been and we are continuously going to communities. So he claimed that we are not consulting with communities. I don't know where does it derive from. If it is raised, we can also then zoom in and begin to then come closer to it and see how best can we then assist it and clarify issues. Then when it comes to the issue of the on-farm scope and investigation, so when there were issues at community unrest, the water provision around before the intervention that we are currently implementing, the issue of the dredging and the distancing of that dam, it was raised. Then people, they were not happy with what they called value for money, the work that was done compared to the money that was paid. Then Cogta took the issue upon themselves, and they instituted Section 106, and they have confirmed that they are done with that investigation. Then they will be then presenting that report before a council. Speaker has received the communique from Cogta to say that the investigation has been concluded. It will be then for council. At this stage, we don't know which it's in something like. We are still awaiting them to hear those outcomes. Chairperson, I'm committing myself and the team that this audit will see improvement, and Cogta, the support that they gave us up to so far with the Treasury, we are quite confident that we will get a better audit outcome as compared to past financial year. So, and we have to take the responsibility for not being able to change the situation around. But this time around, with the support that we received, we believe that change will be realized. So, through Chairperson, I will then request MM then to come in and to deal with those areas that are covered. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Executive Mayor. Can I allow the MM to also comment on the issues as raised?
Thank you once more, Chairperson and honorable members. I think the mayor has touched on the issue of the improvement that we are gunning for in terms of our audit outcome. I can join the mayor in giving the assurance to this committee that with the assistance that we're getting from Cogta through the financial experts that have been deployed in the municipality, we are really hoping for an improved audit opinion. Chair, you will also realize that as the chair was reading the figures, that they are quite high. It's because they are cumulative figures. And as this municipality, we have decided that we must go back 3 years to try and clear this UIFW register. And the investigations, some of them have been conducted already. Some of them are underway, where even our MPEC has even suggested that we get an external agency to assist us in terms of conducting the Section 32 investigations. And thanks to Cogta as well for their hands-on support, where there is a dedicated official that comes every time MPEC sits to guide the committee in ensuring that we deal with this UIFW register. So taking from that, one can actually join the mayor in promising that we will see better audit outcomes in the year that is being audited. Coming to consequence management, yes, as the mayor has said, council has taken a lead in disciplining their employees, in saying they are, I mean, the Section 56 senior managers. It is now with the office that I'm occupying to deal with middle managers, and that process is underway. Of course, the timing is not too good because AG is on site, but the process is underway, and we will ensure that where AG has suggested that something must be done, it will definitely be done, especially once AG is out of sight. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Chair, is anyone responded in regards to the dam that I raised about the investigation of a dam?
Not yet. MM, can you deal with that issue?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the dredging of the dam is a subject of a Section 106 investigation that was undertaken by Provincial Cogta. In actual fact, looking at our WhatsApp group, I've just picked up from the speaker that it has been confirmed that Cogta is coming on the 26th of this month to present the report, which amongst other things, it will be covering the allegations around this term. Thank you so much, Chair.
Okay.
Chair.
Who is Zetunguvani? Who is Zetunguvani?
Chairperson, Zetunguvani is an official of KZN Cogta Forensic Unit. I just wanted to provide an update regarding the investigation.
Okay, proceed.
Okay, greetings, honorable ministers and the colleagues and councillors. No, I just wanted to confirm also regarding the investigation that indeed the department did receive allegations around the dredging of the dam at Uthukela district. However, in the bunch of allegations that were received, there were also issues that overlapped with Alfred Duma. So the investigation had allegations on both the activities at Uthukela and at Alfred Duma. So the MEC approved the investigation and it was finalized. And we've arranged with the Speaker of Uthukela to table that report of Uthukela District Municipality. However, regarding Alfred Duma, there was a slight complication that towards the finalization of that investigation, we received further allegations from the Prima's office regarding other issues that were reported by the community and required an investigation into. So the department had to also address these allegations, these new allegations, which have been addressed and incorporated with the old allegations into one report also, which is supposed to be tabled at Alfred Duma. So that report also is ready and the investigation is finalized. However, there are a few administrative issues and consultative issues that we are finalizing before we arrange to table that report also at Alfred Duma. So currently, that's the status of the two matters. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you. I should think this issue to say that you are dealing with some managers because of the time. Would like you to then do a breakdown like of as your colleagues that came before you earlier, the colleagues from the other municipality, I think was Ilang, so that you do a breakdown when it comes to that UIFW. Because like I've indicated, it's almost a year you've been having these reports. By now, you should have closed up. After all, you are being audited now for 2019-20. These are the matters that were in your audit action plan, if there's been one. So I'll be interested on the status of those, the implementation and the issue of consequence management, because the AG is on record saying that there's no appetite in dealing with wrongdoing in the municipality. Secondly, Majoro, when you're playing with your phone, you must respect the decorum of the house. You must always switch your video off. Because if you don't know, you're on national television and some people are even watching you, they will be giving us that feedback. But from where I'm seated as well, it's on the issue on the decorum of the house. It doesn't look good at all, colleagues. Then we started in the morning with Alfred. Yes, can I first talk? You raise a hand, they say, raise the hand button in the phone there and to calling the chairperson. And then I noted Honorable Kesa. He wanted to make a follow-up this one. And then the issues that we're raising now, as we are moving towards the closing of this meeting, you still speak. Oh, before that, I see some follow-up hands. Direko and Mukalipi, but can I start with Kleza? Honorable Kleza? Honorable Kleza, are you still having network? For... Then I will allow Direko followed by Mukalipi. Direko.
Thank you, Chair. This follow-up that I'm doing, it's not necessarily from me. It's from one of the.
Can we see
one
you?
of the viewers.
Can we
Chair,
see you, madam?
We have a load shedding where I am, Chair.
Okay.
Yes. It's from one of the viewers on our Parliament live stream, whereby the question reads like this. How is the municipality implementing consequence management? Can the mayor elaborate? What does he mean by dealing with managers? So that is the question, Chair.
Then Honorable Mukalipi. Honorable Mukalipi.
Yes, Chair. I wanted to make a follow-up on the official from I can't remember. The gentleman who just spoke after the mayor or after the MM.
From Cogta in the province.
Yes.
Yes.
I would like to appeal to Z to give us a time frame of that report. We take note of the administrative processes that he's mentioning, but we work with time frames in this committee, especially if it affects the people on the ground. So if you can elaborate, how long does the report will be take to be tabled in the council? Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Yes. I've lost Honorable Kleza. I'm calling him for the last time. Then can the colleagues respond to the questions? Then that will be the end of the questions and answer session.
Chair,
Honorable Kleza is here. Okay.
Sorry, Chair.
I thought you don't want to sleep. Proceed.
I'll sleep at 8, Chair. So we said we'll serve. Chair, I didn't hear the ability of the municipality for recording and monitoring of the water losses in the municipality in this presentation, not unless it's the time when I was taken out of the system. But the Auditor General also speaks to some issues here, Chairperson, that he is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence that confirm the adjustment of 50.24 million processed to cash and cash equivalent. And then he goes on to say that determine $46.77 million. And then he goes on to say that he's unable to determine whether any adjustments were necessary to receivable from exchange stated at 99.1 million. Can the municipality just give us clarity these amounts that the Auditor General is alluding to, the water losses, in terms of what steps have they taken to ensure that they mitigate the water losses in the municipality? Thanks, Chair. You are muted, Chair.
My apologies. I was saying I'm still seeing the hand of Honorable Director up. Did she omit something or she forgot to lower her hand?
Chair, I forgot to lower my hand.
Okay, I
Thank
thought
you,
you
Chair.
don't. I thought you don't want to go and sleep. Okay. Colleagues, that's how far we could no. Respond to the questions as follow-up questions as raised by Honorable Feza, Honorable Direko, and Honorable Mkalipi. Once you do that, then we'll be heading towards the closure of this meeting. It's already morning now. And some of us still need to work tomorrow morning, this morning. Can we allow that to be the first one to start? Then the officials of the municipality, then it will be the mayor.
No, thanks for the opportunity again, Chairperson. No, maybe to provide an estimate of when maybe we can finalize the matter and all the engagement that still need to happen between some of the councillors at the municipality at Alfred Duma. I think by the end of April, the report will be finalized and it should be tabled with Alfred Duma. But that is also dependent on one of the critical issues, which is regarding the engagement of some of the councillors with the investigation team. So I think if that happens, the big hurdle would have been overcome, and then before the end of April, we would have finalized everything and arranged for a tabling. Thank you.
Can we get the officials from the municipality to respond before the mayor?
Thank you once more, Chair. On the issue of water losses, we have engaged the services of the experts who have now developed a methodology that is acceptable to AG in terms of measuring our water losses. And of course, in addition to that, some of the water actually gets lost because of aging infrastructure, and the mayor did talk to the project that is underway in trying to ensure that we refurbish our infrastructure. The issue of AG and the adjustments and the journal that was passed, there is one of the charges that have been concurred on the staff that work in finance, because of course for those that understand the accounting, they had to force balance the books by passing those journals. It's an issue which needs consequence management, and we are indeed dealing with those officials that were involved with that. Thank you, Chair. I will leave the last question of consequence management and dealing with managers to the mayor, because it was directed to him. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chair.
Can you start by apologizing to the nation on your cell phone thing?
Chairperson, let me apologize to yourself But I'm using the cell phone to take notes and to make reference when responding to the question. I'm not like literally writing on the book. I was writing on my cell phone to take notes and
But
questions.
when you do that, when you're not recognized, it's better for you to switch off your video and you do whatever you're doing subtly.
Yes.
Because it's being perceived as if you might have been looking for some notes to refer, but the way you were holding the phone, maybe you want us to show you, you ask the committee secretary to show you how it looks like outside there. You'll be very much embarrassed even yourself. So, but if you are explaining it, that's why all the time I urge our meeting participants, if you are not recognized to speak by the chairperson, make sure that you switch off your video, you mute your microphone.
I apologize for that.
Sure. Okay, then proceed.
In terms of the issue that talks to, just to add one issue on the water losses, we have current projects, one in Wembezi Township, where we are dealing with the issues of addressing infrastructure so that you can cap or mitigate on water losses. Is one of those projects that we are doing. Then on the consequence management, with regards to the senior managers, as a municipality, there is a responsibility of council where we have to address any issue that pertains to Section 54, 56 managers, municipal manager, as well as managers reporting to the municipal manager. It is the responsibility of council to institute any consequence management in that regard. That is why I was referring to the managers and council. Then managers or staff below that, then it becomes the responsibility of the MM, since he has also covered that as part of his response. So I think I were to then clarify that issue and also take the opportunity through Chairperson and to thank you for the opportunity that you have given us. It was more of an eye-opener for us as municipalities in terms of accountability and reporting to our people. And we will work harder to ensure that we provide better service to our people and also ensure that we account on a regular basis in terms of public participation programs with the structures that you have for stakeholders, as well as various communities in our constituencies that we lead. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Anything from the Provincial Department of Cogta?
Chairperson, it's Joey Krishnan on behalf of Cogta KZN. We don't have anything to add in terms of the questions that have been raised. Let us also take this opportunity to thank the portfolio committee members for this opportunity, as well as to our municipalities for making the relevant presentations. Chairperson, we would like to assure the committee, as well as the viewers out there, that as Cogta, as a provincial department, we take our monitoring function very seriously. We also take our support function in terms of Section 154 of the Constitution very seriously. And where there is a need for such support in municipalities, we certainly aim to fulfill that mandate. Thank you very much, Chairperson, for the opportunity.
It's much appreciated. Is SALGA still here? SALGA still here? DCoG is still here again?
Yes, yes, Chairperson, and thank you very much, Chair, for the very active sort of session. We don't have anything to add, Chair. Thank you very much.
Sorted, you are covered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honorable Deza has got a name of calling all these things. To the mayor of Inkosi, Langalibalele, I think you'll agree that we spend most of the time with yourselves because we are concerned about your continued adverse audit opinion and your inaction in addressing matters as raised by the AG. And we've agreed on the way forward that we are going to deal with all those breakdown of the UIU IFW, and you'll send it to our committee secretary latest by Friday afternoon. So, and you prove it to us that indeed you have been acting, because the way you have been dealing with these matters, I think you are found wanting. And then you must take this thing in good faith, due to the fact that we are doing oversight. And the reality and the fact during our engagement with the AG, municipalities have tended to ignore the AG's report. And some of the things I think they are evident on what we've experienced today. Colleagues from Alfred, Duma, yes, you have been helpful, and then we appreciate the progress that you've made thus far. But I also think that the issues as raised by the AG, when you developed and adopt a post-audit action plans, they are not just being, those things are not just done for malicious compliance. Whatever we were raising with the UMM, we were testing the effectiveness of that post-audit action plan that you've been referring to. So these are the matters that we also have keen interest on, that will still follow up with you. The same thing now with the districts. We have agreed that you're gonna put all those issues that relate to your UIFW in the spreadsheet, including the consequence management that you've implemented. And then we also want to see a list of those government departments that are owing you over 14 million. So you must give us that list, so that in our follow-up engagement, then we must have to talk to the relevant portfolio committees to see, for them to see that there are some of their departments that they are doing oversight on that are bankrupting the municipalities. On Okahlamba, sorry, my apologies. I'm on the other part of the country. You'll understand why. We don't have seas this side. There's no sea. I should think executive mayor of the district as well. I wonder, how does your IGR function? Because you have got Okahlamba and Alfred Duma, who are doing so well in terms of their audit outcomes. Then why are you not sharing those best practices as the district? Yes, so that you learn from them. You see what I've observed with Okahlamba. Even when we ask questions, there were no deniers. If we said, but yes, you got an unqualified audit report with no findings, but there are these issues that the AG has highlighted. You could have seen how they volunteered the information and also the commitment that we are dealing with this. It will never recur. This is the level of accountability that we want to see, unlike what we experienced with Inkosi, ILM. Amalgamation has come and gone, and you must start to take responsibility. Because honestly, that issue to be told that officials that were involved in those UIFW, they are no longer in the employ of the municipality. It's when people don't want to take accountability. And the LG is also on record saying that there's no political oversight there. There's no leadership there. And then there's no appetite to also deal with wrongdoing in that municipality. So these matters are ongoing. We're still going to follow up with you. And then I think we'll also come and do oversight to also compare on what you've told us on paper and what is actually happening on the ground. And the beauty about it, when we do oversight ourselves, we also interact with community members. If it's a bridge that you said you've built, we want to go and see it. And then if this water that you are saying you're delivering to the community members will also tell us what is actually happening. But I should think we couldn't have become enemies today, because whatever we're doing, ours is to do oversight. And you need to account for your action. Our interest as this committee, we want to know how are you spending these public funds. And it doesn't end only on knowing how are you spending the public funds. You must account for them. Because honestly, I found it very disturbing, especially with regard to Inkosi Langalibalele, wherein then you can see that some of the colleagues there are just comfortable in the mediocrity that has been happening there. And it can't be. We must all be accountable for actions. And then we also want good governance in these municipalities. I just want to thank you that we've been together since 9 a.m. Now it's almost after midnight. We're in the new day. And the reason why we're still here, you could have assisted us to leave earlier had some of you been responding to our questions adequately. I just hope and believe next time, because the beauty about it, don't you dare think that this is the last time. But in the next 3 months, those of you who didn't adequately respond, because immediately, I won't even say 3 months, for those of you who are still going to submit documents to us, we are going to assess those documents. And then if the responses are not adequate and we are not satisfied, definitely we're going to reconvene you. The beauty about it these days, there's not even any cost, because we'll meet via Zoom and you will have to account for your actions. So basically that's it. We want to thank all of you, those of you who have been very honest and upfront with us, those who opted to not to come clean. Let the conscience deal with them, and then we'll await their documentation, and then we'll take it from there. I want to thank all of you, Executive Mayor of the district as the leader of the delegation, the colleagues from Cogta in the province, and our other colleagues led by DDG Fosi. I think we knocked off at similar time this morning, and you have been here earlier during the day when you were telling me we were having another meeting. I even asked you to take a nap, and you told me, no, Chairperson, I still need to work. At least that is the end of our meetings for the week. So I'll advise, starting from the honorable members, that where possible, take a rest. No. That's not the end of our meetings for the week. We've got a meeting on Friday, but at least it's not up to late nights. We're gonna do that one during the day. So then take a rest where possible and take good care of your health. We still need you for us to continue to do this work that we are doing. Somebody has also reminded me that tomorrow I think we have Amatole. Tomorrow we're having Northwest. There are those other municipalities that couldn't give us satisfactory answers. They are coming back. It's Northwest and then Amatole and Northwest, and then yes, we'll take it from there. Today is Thursday. We're going to meet Northwest, and then tomorrow it will be Friday. We're going to meet Amaton colleagues. But because those are follow-up meetings, I don't think it will take much time. But I want to thank you, all of you, for your commitment. Like SALGA colleagues are gone, they are not in this meeting. And you have seen the members' dissatisfaction in the meeting. They were supposed to respond to questions, but they are not here, all of them, including the PDO. This is the method that we're gonna take further with the leadership. But all of you, I think I want to thank you for your commitment and dedication. The mere fact that you are still here, it means a lot to all of us. We hope to see you soon, either through oversight or through recall. You will be called back to the committee. Those who are doing good, keep up on doing the good job in service of our masses, because I think that's why we are all here, to service our masses. Thank you so much, colleagues. We need to close this meeting, go and rest so that we are all fresh in the morning. Enjoy the rest of your morning as you prepare and rest. Sure.
Long live the chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. And good
Thank
evening.
you, Chairperson.
Good morning.
Malibongwe.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.